I'm here today with Jeff Cadwell, Hubbard County Administrator, and I'd like to start out by announcing something. That Jeff has solved the problem with the microphone. Every guest we've had in here, and those who have been guests will know that we usually have a little conversation about how that microphone likes to flop over. And we got a lot of different suggestions on how we could get it to stay in place. And today it was finally solved by Jeff Cadwell, who not only told us how to go about and try to fix that, but then also suggested a practical solution, which was to go and get a tool, apply the tool to the problem, and fix the problem. And so, welcome, Hubbard County Administrator Jeff Cadwell.
Thanks, Zach. Happy to be here.
So, Jeff, I think your problem-solving skills come naturally to you, as an administrator, and
I've never seen a problem or a situation where I didn't think I could do it.
Yeah.
So I helped my brother remodel his house, and he's like, "How do you know how to do this?" And I'm like, "It never occurred to me that I didn't know how to do it." So from a practical standpoint, and now with the advent of YouTube, you can actually get practical advice, get the right tools, and just do things. So I guess I've just never had a thought in my head that said you can't do that. So I see a challenge and I just take after it.
Mm-hmm. And that could apply to things like mechanical issues, working on cars, doing remodeling issues, things. So it's sort of like an attitude like if I haven't learned how to do it yet, I can figure it out.
I had one grandfather was a carpenter, built houses, did fine carpentry work. I had another one that was a machinist. So I never. I can run a lathe. I can play with tools. I can frame a building, and right now I'm teaching myself how to do cabinetry.
Where did you grow up?
I went to Anoka High School. So grew up just northeast of there in Ramsey, and lived there till graduation.
Did both your grandfathers spend a lot of time with you growing up?
I spent a lot of time with both of them, yeah.
Yeah.
When I was a kid in the summer, my grandpa and my uncle would build a house or two every summer, and my dad and I would go help. So I was the guy that was schlepping shingles up to the roof and doing just, 14, 15 years old, doing what you could do. And then I spent a lot of time in the shop with my other grandfather.
Do you remember what your attitude towards work was at that time? Like, was it something that your dad was like, "Come on, Jeff, time to go out and do this," or were you kind of more of the attitude of that I want to do it, I want to help, and I want to learn something?
I wanted to do it. I wanted to learn how to help, but I also kind of realized pretty quickly that if I was going to do what I wanted to do, I needed money. And so I would do those things. When I helped build houses, I get paid for that.
Yeah.
When I spent time with my other grandfather, it was just hanging out with him and learning how to do things.
Yeah.
My attitude toward work, I started working before I was 16, and I've had a job ever since I was 16.
Yeah. Where do you think you got that work ethic?
I'm sure that came from my dad.
Yeah.
My dad worked hard every day. Mom worked too, and it never occurred to me not to work.
And so just sort of like by osmosis, or did they ever kind of sit you down and give you a lecture on the necessity of a good work ethic? And
there was no lecture. There was just an example.
So just spending time with them.
Just spending time with people. Yep.
Did you spend a lot of time with both of your parents then?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they moved up here just shortly after we did. They lived just south of town down by Monaga.
Oh, you know what? My mom did the same thing too.
Okay.
Yeah, she moved down. Actually, her address is Monaga, but yeah, she moved up here too after I did. So,
Yep.
So did you graduate from Anoka High School then?
I did.
A tornado then.
A
right?
tornado.
Yeah.
Anoka tornadoes. Yep.
And then you went on to Concordia.
Yep, I
Moorhead.
went to Concordia Moorhead for 4 years, and and I actually still associated with that. I'm obviously wearing one of their apparels today.
Yeah,
I'm still on the alumni board. I was there for they had a Lorenzen Center dialogue this week, and I was up there for that to go see that.
What is that?
Lorenzen Center was established to essentially cultivate conversations about diversity. And so on Wednesday night, they had former Senator Heidi Heitkamp and former Governor Ed Schaefer talking about discourse in today's politics that doesn't have to be so dividing, right? We can disagree and be agreeable about it. So we had a civility lecture and conversation and a panel discussion after that, and it was a nice conversation.
Did you come out of it feeling optimistic about the possibility of civility in political discourse in this country?
I don't think the needle moved very much for me, but it's nice to see two people in the room who have worked together, have had very different viewpoints, and who still find ways to work together. So,
and from what I read, you are a vice chair of the Alumni Association at Concordia.
I was president. I'm past president now.
Yeah.
So I'll be rotating off in October after a little over 9 years of service.
Wow.
On that board, and it's been good. I really enjoy doing that. When I went to school, having financial assistance, which was provided a lot by donor support for scholarships, was really important to me. That was the only way I was able to go there. So supporting the Alumni Association, financially supporting the college so other students have the same chance I did, is really important to me.
So you, as the chair or the president of the Alumni Association, that's almost like a full-time job in and of itself.
No, it's a volunteer organization. Our primary responsibility is soliciting, vetting nominations for alumni awards so that we can highlight the achievement of people who have attended Concordia College and people who are have had fantastic, impactful careers, and then people who have been lifelong dedicated servants in their communities, whether they're a teacher, a coach, or a religious leader. We like to recognize people who've made an impact. The mission of that college is that we're supposed to go out and do work, right, and impact the affairs of the world. So we try to recognize that. The rest of the work we do is relatively advisory. We get updates from administrative offices and the functions of what's going on the campus, and provide some support. Also Wednesday we had a focus group meeting where they're doing some marketing work and trying to come up with some new taglines or new advertising material relative to the college and the current times. So we engage with that as well.
Yeah. So your day job is county administrator here in Hubbard County, right?
Yep, it is.
And you've been doing that for, 3 years now?
It'll be 3 years in May. Yeah.
In May, just about 3 years. Okay. And I think that's when I met you, when you first moved here through the Rotary Club.
I was invited to speak at the Rotary Group before I actually took the position. So I think I was back in the Rotary Group about three years ago, and joined very shortly after that.
Okay. Now I've got Minnesota Statute Section 375A.06, which gives very specific definitions of what the county administrator is and what he or she is to do. But in your own words, sort of what is the purpose and function of the county administrator? Yeah,
it's funny because people ask, what do you do? And I say, I work for Hubbard County. And then people say, well, what do you do? And I say, I'm the administrator. And they're like, well, what does that mean?
Right.
Well, within that position, I'm responsible to and for the board, for providing them good information and background to make good decisions, and then upholding the policies of the county that they're responsible for. I manage a team of about 12 or 13 department heads who are then responsible for each of their, the highway department, human services, all of the administrative functions in the government center, and trying to coordinate those efforts. So this morning we had a standing committee meeting, and we have standing committees formed where we have one or two commissioners and then the involved department heads. And we were having and we do that because obviously if there's a quorum of commissioners, it's a public meeting. So in order to avoid a quorum, we have one or two commissioners there, and we can have conversations. So we're talking about the possibility of a regional solid waste facility This is a project that 6 or 9 counties in the area are working on, and we were having conversations about that, and we were talking about what impact, if any, that might have, because the North Transfer Station that we have has been identified as a possible location for that one of those regional centers. Well,
where is that?
The North Transfer Station is just north of the intersection of 200 and 71.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So as you're just making the turn and heading to Bemidji, it's about a mile north of that intersection.
Okay.
So if we have a whole bunch more commercial, garbage and demolition traffic on that highway, do we have to have a conversation with MnDOT and coordinate turn lanes and make sure that we don't create an unsafe situation by adding additional traffic there? So this morning, our solid waste director, our land commissioner, and our new highway engineer were all in that meeting with myself and 2 commissioners, and we get to have a good conversation about the big topics that are going on in the long-range projects, and we kind of make mental notes of, hey, we're doing a solid waste project, but is that going to have an impact on the roads, or vice versa?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what would be the benefit to the county of having a new solid waste facility like that?
Well, the reason that we're looking at that is all of our demo landfills and landfills are permitted by the MPCA, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and our permits are for 10 years at a time, and they're changing the rules relative to what you have to do to provide safety and containment in those facilities. So our current permit, when it runs out, we're going to have to meet a higher standard, and that higher standard is going to cost a lot more. So counties working together to provide a regional solution means we can distribute the cost. We're also asking the state to, for bonding for a big portion of the cost of the development of this regional center. So it's a lot of planning. A lot of it's driven by local need. A lot of it's driven by state policy and changes in state agency management. So this project has been going on for it started probably before I was here, but it's picking up momentum, and we actually have a bill in the legislature this year asking for bonding for a big portion of this project.
What would be the impact on the existing facility, the existing transfer stations? And
yeah, that's a great question. So the demo landfill that the county has is at the south facility, in the city of Park Rapids, mm-hmm. and that license is good through 2029, and it's getting full, right? I mean, where do we put garbage?
That's the one on Henrietta, right?
Yep, it's the one on South Henrietta. Where do we put garbage is a big challenge, right? Because we just keep making more. So today we were talking about solutions for grinding clean demo, grinding branches and things like that, and being able to use that as material for other things and not having it fill our landfills. But when those permits expire, we're going to have a plan of what we do after that. Mm-hmm. So it's 2029 is not that far off. It's time to have a good plan.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking, like, for people who, like me, who go and drop their garbage off at the dump,
The residential drive-through is not likely going to change.
Oh.
If the demo portion is someplace other than south, what we'll have is you'll have to dump in smaller bins, and mm-hmm. it'll have to be transported. Mm-hmm. But right now, when you go to demo, if you have clean demo, you just go and drop it off in the pile, and
you just dump it out there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that pile will not be there after that permit expires. So it'll be covered. Well, last year we covered a big chunk of that pile. I think we covered 3 or 4 acres of the existing demo landfill and finished that. So
okay, so that's a big ticket project that you're working on now.
It's really exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Counties do the work that provides the infrastructure so people can live their lives, run their businesses, and take care of their families, right? Roads.
Things we take for granted. I mean, roads and garbage disposal are 2 key examples of things that somebody's got to do in the state of Minnesota. Counties are charged with doing a lot of that. So that's a lot of the work that we do. And you've got an important role in coordinating that within the county as the administrator.
I do have... this isn't my first job as a county administrator, and it's not my first job in public administration. Mm-hmm. And I have some experience with a lot of different things: building projects, financial management, and have, like I said, I have the ability to see a big picture, and it never occurred to me to not offer an opinion to say, have we asked this? Have we thought about that? And we did a lot of that this morning on these two projects. So
yeah. So just taking a step back for those of us who are not maybe as familiar with the structure of the county government. So you mentioned the county board. So what elected officials are there in Hubbard County?
Sure. By statute, every county has a county board, and every county has who are elected officials, and I think 80 or more of the 87 counties have a 5-member board.
It's not necessarily have to be 5, but most of them do.
It's stipulated that it's 5 members. There are a couple of counties that have more, 7 or 9 members. So it's 5-member board is the general rule. The county sheriff and the county attorney are also statutorily elected officials in every county in the state of Minnesota.
Yeah.
And in some counties, the auditor and the recorder are elected officials, but there has been many counties have moved those over to being appointed officials, which means they're employees of the county, and we can hire people for the qualifications for those positions.
Which is one of your jobs under subdivision 4A, to hire qualified staff.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, we have over 260 employees at the county, and typically I'm only involved. We have a full human resource department, and I'm typically only involved in interview and selection of department heads.
And you serve at the pleasure of the board then, right?
Yep.
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 And so I think when I just did my tally in my head, that sounds like there are only 7 elected officials in Hubbard County then.
That's correct.
And of those 7, how many are up for re-election? We're in April right now of 24. How many are up for re-election in November?
2 commissioner positions are up for election in November of this year.
Okay.
District 2 and 4.
Districts 2 and 4. Okay. And what about is there an election coming up for county attorney or sheriff?
There was one 2 years ago, and they are also serve 4-year terms, so they'll be up in 26.
26.
Yep.
Okay, so there's not a planned election for any of those positions.
On the November ballot, the only 2 county positions will be county commissioner, District 2 and District 4.
And so they stagger those
Yep.
So that they're not all either elected in 1 year.
Yeah, actually, every 10 years, as a result of the census, we have to reevaluate our commissioner districts to make sure that they're balanced, fair, population, representative. And of course, after 2020, we got the numbers in 2021 and 2022. We had to redistrict.
Yeah.
And when we did so, we moved a few things around, and that's why District 2 is up for election this year, even though District 2 was up for election last year, because we have to, with 5 commissioner districts, we can't have all of them up for election at the same time.
Right.
So,
what is the current population of Hubbard County?
Just north of 22,000.
22,000. Wow. Okay. And I saw that when you drive into Park Rapids now, I think the sign says it's a little bit over 4,000.
I want to say it's about 4,200. I can't remember if it's plus or minus, but
yeah. So there's 18,000 people in this county who do not reside in the county seat.
In the city, and more interestingly than that, we have 16,000 residential parcels in the county. More than half of them are seasonal.
Okay.
So the population of Hubbard County is really well more than 22,000 people all the time, but there's only 22,000 residential.
Do you see that distribution as between seasonal and full-time residential? Do you see that trending in any direction, one way or the other?
I think that's been pretty consistent here. I don't think it's moving in any great ways, plus or minus, but it provides a lot of diversity. It provides a lot of opportunity. It's a response to the area and provides for the healthy economy that Hubbard County has, because we have a very strong tourism base. We have a really good base of seasonal valued homes, and then of course that invites downtown businesses and commercial and industrial applications because a lot of people want to be here.
Yeah. In the age of Zoom, we've seen more and more companies move to a work-at-home type of model and things like that. Have you noticed any kind of marked increase in the overall population in the county just due to people who are basically cutting cords, cutting ties to urban centers and saying, I can live wherever I would like to live and I would prefer to live up here than down there?
Yeah, absolutely. There was after COVID or during COVID and after COVID, all of the counties in Minnesota that have a strong seasonal resident or cabin presence have seen an influx of people who want to spend more of their time here. Yeah. And people often retire here. Yeah. Yeah. But there's a lot more people who are working here as well, even though their job may not be here.
Yeah. And that benefits the county economically because they're spending their money here. Right? Yeah. I mean, it doesn't actually work to improve the tax revenues necessarily.
Yeah, and that's kind of a goofy thing that people think. Because somebody builds a new house doesn't mean we get more taxes. It means we allocate the taxes differently. So we have roughly $54 million worth of tax capacity in Hubbard County. Actually, that was a year ago. So I think it's over north of 60.
What does that mean?
So we have approximately $600 million worth of appraised value in all the parcels in Hubbard County.
I see.
And it's approximately 1% is tax capacity.
It's
$6.4 billion of value, $60 million of tax capacity. And then our levy this year is $20,200,000. So our county tax rate is about 31%.
Okay, so I'm just trying to, I'm not that great with numbers, but I do my best. So when you say capacity, I think of like, okay, what's the capacity of a bucket? Is how much water can it hold?
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So can you analogize that to the county?
Yeah, I can. So every type of property classification is taxed at a different rate according to the state. So basically, a home is taxed at 1%. 1% of value. So you got a $200,000 home, your tax bill is going to be 2% or $2,000. Because we have more capacity, $60 million worth of tax capacity, than we ask for in our levy, $20 million, then our tax rate is lower than 1%.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It's 0.3% of 1%. So tax capacity, the average in the state of Minnesota, the average property tax on a home is somewhere around 1.5% to 2% of the total value. And in Hubbard County, that number is somewhere between 0.6 and 0.8, depending on which city, town, or township you live in. Yeah,
and then if you got riparian land and stuff like that too, right, or shoreland.
Yeah, that's another thing that people you don't pay taxes on your waterfront.
Oh.
Your waterfront is included in the calculation of the value of your property, which then determines how much of the county tax levy you're responsible for.
Oh, so it doesn't matter if you've got lake property or otherwise. It's just the size of the parcel that matters. That's it.
Well, it's not that simple either.
Okay.
there are three things that go into it.
Yeah.
If you own a home, your property has value, your buildings have value, your improvements, your buildings,
sure,
and any other features. And if you're on lakeshore, that lakeshore has value. So all of those things are added to the value of a home. So somebody has a 2,500 square foot home on a 5-acre lot, it has one value. You take that same property, that same 5 acres and that same house, and put it on 300 foot of lakeshore, it has additional value.
I see. Okay, so it just represents an increase in value.
Yeah, you don't pay taxes on your lakeshore. You pay taxes on the cumulative value of your property, and if you have lakeshore, there is a value for that.
Yeah. So I think it was a couple years ago when there was sort of like a reassessment of, I shouldn't say a reassessment, but there was a new reckoning when it comes to the tax values of people's homes, and I mean it was something that I think you explained well at our Rotary meeting, but I think it left a lot of people kind of wondering, what was going on there, and why did I see my tax rate increase in a lot of cases, or what? So can you kind of explain what happened there and what was done and why it was necessary?
So I'm need a little more information. Over the last 3 years, particularly because of COVID, the value of properties has shot up.
Okay, maybe that's what I was thinking of then. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The tax rates actually come down as a result of
that. Not the rates, but just like the numbers that people saw on their
somebody
tax statements.
Used to have a $450,000 home, and now they have a $650,000 home. Yes. Okay. And truthfully, every county, throughout the state, that happened. Values went up because supply is limited, right? Basic economics. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And people were willing to pay more. When I moved here 3 years ago, there were no houses listed for sale.
Right.
Supply and demand. So we paid more for a house than we would have 2-3 years before that because of market conditions, and everybody else did. And the truth of the matter is, especially in the cabins and the seasonal properties, people have been willing to pay more.
Sure.
And when they do that, every year as we set values to determine what everybody's share of the taxes is, we have to work with the State Department of Revenue, and we have to set our values at 90 to 105% of the values they see by looking at the sales in the previous 15-month cycle. So they look back, if somebody has a $400,000 house and there was a bidding war and it sold for $600,000, well, that's a 50% increase. And that's not uncommon. We saw a lot of that. So two years ago, we saw generally a 27% increase in home prices across the board in the county. Mm-hmm. Last year, it was almost 20%. And people just got their tax statements this week. So that number's going down. The fallout from COVID, right? Supply and demand, people are willing to pay more to be here rather than in the Twin Cities. Has just driven home values up. Now, when the tax capacity of the county went from 54 million to 60 million, but the levy only went up 6%, right? People's relative share of taxes, their property taxes, didn't go up. When their value went up 27%, their taxes didn't go up 27%. Mm-hmm. When their value went up 20%, their taxes didn't go up 20%. There is a shift, right? Because 27% increase on 400,000 is more than 27% increase on 200,000.
Right.
Right. So if you're
in dollars
in value, mm-hmm. and then value times the tax rate ends up giving you your actual taxes that you owe. So they're correlated, but they're not directly. They're not. When people get their value statement, mm-hmm. and their value goes up $80,000, they think their taxes are going up $80,000, and their taxes are going up, 0.3% of $80,000. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So,
there's this common misconception that I heard, and maybe it's not a misconception, but I think a lot of people believe this, and I'll say what it is that the estimated market value for tax purposes is actually only about 75% of what the true market value of the home is.
What I will tell you is that the appraised value and the market value are always chasing each other. So as the market value is going up, the appraised value is playing catch up, which was what we've seen the last 3 years. If the market value changes, in any other way, the appraised value always happens based on last year's sales data. So it's always chasing.
So it's a year behind.
It's a year to 3 years behind.
Okay.
Yep.
Right. So it takes a little while. So if the prices go down, it'll take a little while for the
prices aren't going to go down.
Yeah. Hey, that's good to know. I mean, it's good to hear as a homeowner. But
if you own a property,
mm-hmm.
I don't think the increase in pricing has flattened out a little bit, but they're still increasing.
So it's not going down. one of the I talked to Mary Thompson a while ago about some of the challenges that are being faced here, and the idea of housing comes first and foremost in her mind. Housing and daycare kind of going hand in hand and stuff like that. So her concern is more about trying to maintain a workforce here, not necessarily attracting new jobs and new businesses here, but to help to fill the jobs that exist. And so her focus is on trying to increase available housing in the area. How much of a role how much does the county think about issues like that?
Well, right now the county's thinking a lot about that. The county, the city, and the Park Rapids School last year, kind of against all recent history, approved a tax abatement program to build the 2 new apartments that Heartland Lakes Development is building that will be available for occupancy this year.
Those are the ones out by Walmart.
Yep, just east of Walmart. So there's 58 new units of housing that are here because HLDC has and Mary have some ideas and some contacts and some ability to do this, and B, the city, county, and the school all agreed that from a tax perspective, what they would do is they would capture the tax capacity from that new construction, and they would use it to finance part of that project. So that, and then when that project is paid, then that capacity goes back in, and then they'll start paying regular taxes as any other commercial or housing unit would do. But more so than that, the county board has made it a priority this year that we are studying options for creating a countywide economic development authority. And the countywide EDA would provide us opportunities for a lot more flexibility in the development of commercial or industrial or housing throughout the county. The city of Park Rapids has an economic development authority. But Farden Township doesn't, right? And they don't have the capacity to bring something.
I don't even know where Farden Township is.
Farden Township is the most northeastern township in the county.
Okay.
So it's right up on U.S. Highway 2. And actually, that's a place where we're targeting some housing and some industrial development because it's in a great place. I mean, it's that area serves Bemidji workforce, not Park Rapids workforce. But U.S. Highway 2 and the rail corridor is there, and there's already industry there. So making conditions right for more industrial development seems to make sense. So the county is taking affirmative actions right now to bring to bear the allowable economic development tools that we can use to support the development, essentially the development of tax capacity. But the most important way to develop tax capacity is make sure that we have enough housing or adequate housing, and then invite industrial and commercial development. Okay. So those kind of work going hand in hand to develop both of those things simultaneously. We have to. If somebody comes to town and says, we want to, and these are crazy things. We have a $40 million development, and we plan to employ 100 people. But we need to know that there's 100 people here to work. Yeah. And right now, as you just mentioned, it's challenging for the existing employers to find people to work. So the way to make sure that that we can tell them we are doing that is we say, well, here's 58 units, and here's congressionally designated money that's going to allow us to put in another 30 or 40 units, and here's the county's plans that within the next 5 years we have an opportunity to develop another 6 or 8 dozen properties throughout the county. Those are big numbers when you think about 22,000 people, and you're talking about adding 200 plus units, times 4. Well, that's that's another 1,000. That's big growth. Units, and that represents 3,000 or 4,000 people, probably, right? Well, no, 200 units probably represents about 1,000 people. Okay, but 1,000 people on 22,000 is big growth. The state of Minnesota is growing at about 0.01%. Hubbard County, I think, grew at 0.1 or 2
In terms of population?
population.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's Minnesota's actually growing
Yes.
in population.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Um,
I think there was a year where it was down by 0.1%, but it's back up to neutral or slightly increasing.
what do you see the population in this county being in 2034?
Oh, in 10 years, I mean, you would, if it was more than 1 or 2% a year, I would be very surprised. But if we continue with the housing projects that we have, it could be 2% a year.
Yeah.
You know, so 10 years, 2%
20%
could be,
more.
wouldn't be 20% more, it'd probably be about 10%. So maybe 24,000.
Yeah.
But that's growing at a faster rate than other counties in the state, other than the metro counties.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's no real, I mean, I know some people are kind of concerned about Highway 34 going east becoming almost looking like a Brainerd or something like that, you know, with a big, strip malls and that sort of thing. It doesn't sound like that's in the cards, at least for the next 10 years or so. No.
No, there's no. Highway 34 is I mean, U.S. Highway 2 is intended to be an industrial corridor, right up on the north side of the county.
Yeah.
And the railway that runs through there means it's also an industrial corridor. Nobody wants to come in and put something out on, you know,
Big box stores.
a big box store. I mean, they would have to locate within the population centers, and we've already got all those that we can. The growth in the city of Park Rapids there's room for growth around the edges. I believe the city either has or is planning on expanding their industrial park, but that would be an addition to the existing one, not dropping something, you know, halfway between here and Nevis.
Yeah. What are some of the challenges that Hubbard County is facing right now the problems that you're that you're currently working on?
Well, we have problems related to housing. We've offered finding qualified employees. We've offered jobs to people who would have to relocate here to take that job, who have had to turn it down because they found out they couldn't find a place to live or they couldn't afford a place to live.
Yeah.
And it's a challenging environment. I mean, the law enforcement area is one that's under a lot of scrutiny, right? And it's a hard job to do. People who do it really want to do it, and they kind of push through that. And our staff are fantastic, including, you know, starting with the sheriff. But it's hard to find people to fill those positions. So our concerns are the community concerns. Housing is a big issue. But finding the qualified employees is the biggest. You know, 260 employees. If you have we usually have a new person starting every week. You know, for good reasons. People retiring, people getting better jobs, and that, you know, we're right on the tail end of the boomers, so we're still having a lot of people retiring out of our community.
Yeah. Crime in the county. Is it trending up, trending down? Or, you know, what are some of the issues involving, law enforcement? Or
here's the good news, and the bad news is I don't know. We have an elected attorney and we have an elected sheriff, and they are primarily responsible for the administration of those two areas. What I will tell you is the average daily population in the jail is down from the high of a couple of years ago. Which I think is good. The county attorney's office has added a significant number of staff over the last 10 years to keep up with the workload, which is bad. There are good and bad things. Generally, I don't know that crime is trending up. But I do know that our law enforcement department and our attorneys and our prosecutors are really targeting the things that affect the majority of people.
And what are those things? I mean, if they're discussed in these meetings.
Drugs are a problem everywhere.
Right.
Drug use is a problem everywhere. There isn't a person in our jail who doesn't have drug or alcohol issues. So addiction issues are a problem. Poverty is a big problem. You know, people have fewer choices when they don't have enough resources to meet their basic needs. And then it's pretty easy to make bad choices in that circumstance. So But we have, we've also had to add a lot of staff in our human services department because there are more people that need services.
Talking about social services and
social
things
services,
like that.
yep.
Mm-hmm.
We've added staff in our adult services because our population is aging.
Yep.
And they need services, and we have staff who help them get connected to those services. Mm-hmm. And we have a significant number of children in this community who are living in bad circumstances.
Yeah.
And in order for those circumstances not to be terrible, we have staff who are involved in working with and mediating and providing services and to parents, helping them become better parents. And and then really tough situations, we have to take kids out of bad situations.
Yeah. Well, yeah, with the chip system and all that.
There's a lot of court work around that.
Yeah.
We have 80 staff in the human services department of our 260, and about 80 over in the law enforcement, when you count deputies, dispatchers, jailers, and administration. Those are our two biggest departments.
One question I had for you when it comes to costs and stuff for like attorneys and everything else that came out of COVID and the Zoom age and all that, and I've noticed is that when I first got up here, I started doing chips cases just because I was just kind of getting to know people, getting to know the judges, and it was something I could handle. And I drive to Walker,
yep.
Maybe once or twice a week, and Bagley,
yep.
once or twice a week. And I'm assuming that you were importing some attorneys from other places in Hubbard County as well. But you'd pay for all the windshield time to go out there and back, plus all the mileage. And then with the dawn of Zoom, all those costs pretty much went away, because now if it's a 30-second court hearing, it's literally just 30 seconds plus however long the attorney's got to wait for the case to be called and whatever prep needs to be done. But it must have been a dramatic decrease in budgets for attorneys. No.
As far as I am aware, Hubbard County was not hiring consultant attorneys for cases like that.
Okay.
That they had the capacity to manage their own cases, but the caseload has increased. Mm-hmm. So we've hired one or two new assistant county attorneys since I've been here.
Yeah.
And hiring an attorney without hiring support staff is just, it doesn't make any sense, right? So if you have an attorney, you need the staff to support that caseload. So the costs have not gone down. You're not wrong about the fact that the court system has made good use of the technology, and I know a lot of hearings are happening in a remote way, and saving everybody that travel time and that trouble. And then the challenges with meeting remotely and not looking people in the eye, right?
I do.
So that's. If there's something good to come out of it, I think we've learned how to use technology. I think we're still learning how to use that well, most efficiently, and then we still have to find the places where sitting down and talking to each other is the best thing to do. But no, we have not seen a decrease in the cost in the attorney's office because the caseload has gone up, and we've had to hire more staff.
Yeah. All right. So you also, I noticed, had acted as the county administrator for Cook County, which that's Ely, isn't it?
Nope.
No?
I think Cook County is Grand Marais.
Okay, Grand Marais, yes.
Yep.
All right. So Grand Marais got a lot of tourism, and it's a big county, and size-wise, I don't know if population-wise it's that big, but and so you've had some experience in that county. You've also been the county administrator for Mahnomen County, and so you've had, I think, any other counties? I think it's just those two.
Yep.
So now this is your third county.
Yep.
So what are some of the strengths of Hubbard County that you've noticed now that you've had experience in other counties?
Sure. Well, I had an opportunity after graduating Concordia. I worked there for 14 years. So I learned administrative management skills as I was doing that. While I was working there, I had an opportunity to go back to grad school, and I went to a public administration grad program. And at that point, identified that I wanted to get into the public work. I wanted to go work for a city or a county. So in 2010, I had my first chance to work for a small city, and the challenge was money, right? a small town of 500 people, balancing the budget, actually creating a budget, creating the internal controls so they could manage their funds. And then I went to the city of Mahnomen and had similar challenges, creating a budget, bringing them up to speed, getting them current with what they needed to do. And then I had a chance to go to Cook County. Cook County is 5 times bigger area-wise than Hubbard County, but has a population of about 5,400 people. Mm-hmm. So the population density in Cook County is 1 person per square mile.
Yeah.
And here it's about 20 people per square mile. In Hennepin County, it's 2,000 people per square mile.
But a lot of that Cook County is like boundary waters too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but you can go out in the boundary waters and not see anybody for hours.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
But their primary challenge is they had an imbalanced budget. And I was the first county administrator in Cook County. Second. Unfortunately, they hired somebody who died of cancer within a year of being there. Mm-hmm. So I was the second, but I was the first one to have to address the budget issue. And the budget issue is that they were underfunding their staff by over $1 million a year. And you can't do that. Mahnomen County has financial challenges too. They only have 5,400 population. They don't have a lot of tax capacity. 2/3 of the tax burden falls on agriculture in Mahnomen County, and they're very sensitive to the cost of that. So the benefit of coming here, and I talked briefly about it before, the balanced economy, having tourism, having agricultural, having commercial, having industrial all together means that nobody's footing the bill like they are in Mahnomen County. The agriculture community is paying 2/3 of the tax bill. Mm-hmm. And the other nice thing is Hubbard County has been really well. I was the first county administrator here too. Prior to that, they had a coordinator. Eric Nearness was a coordinator.
I remember him. Yeah, he wasn't here for that long, but I do remember.
A couple, 3 years. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so they have a balanced budget. They have really good staff. They're really qualified department heads. Mm-hmm. And I will have to tell you, I tell them too, this is the best board I've worked with. They know their stuff. They know their responsibility relative to that their responsibility is to represent the community, but support our staff, right? 75 or 80% of what we do at the county is mandated. It's infrastructure. It's the underlying structure that has to be done. We have to provide human services. We have to provide roads. We have to provide public safety. 40 cents of every local tax dollar goes to pay for public safety. That's the biggest thing because there's no funding from the state to provide those services. But there isn't a problem in Hubbard County. There are a lot of challenges and a lot of opportunities, and it's a great position to come into. Not having to fix a bleeding financial situation, not having to address, any significant staff issues. Yeah. With 260 employees, there's always something happening. Mm-hmm. With the world the way it is, with the state and federal governments making the rules they're making and us having to comply with that, there's always something going on. But the opportunity really here is to help make this organization better. And we had a conversation at a personnel committee meeting on Tuesday, going through our strategic plan and just trying to identify what can we do to be a better employer. How do we interact with our employees? How do we support our supervisors? How do we do those things? Because if we can limit turnover, we can limit cost. So we're working on better problems than I've had to work in the past, where they're dire. Mm-hmm. There's no dire problems.
You're not doing any triage here as much as you would be.
There's no triage here. Yeah. No, Hubbard County's in very, very good situation. Good fund balance, good financial work and management over the years, and like I said, staff who really want to be here and serve the public.
All right, now one thing you sent me over some fishing pictures, so yeah. I'm assuming that you enjoy the fishing around here.
Around here, yesterday I was up on the Rainy River. Uh-huh.
All the way up. That's
mm-hmm. All the way up there. Yeah, it's that time of the year. We had a pretty good day with walleyes. Nothing big, but mm-hmm. But yeah, I do enjoy fishing, and I enjoy a lot of different things, being outdoors.
Muskie fishing. There's opportunities for that in this area. Uh-huh. Do you ever get involved in that, or?
I've been muskie fishing for 25 years.
Yeah. and I mean, I understand. I've never gone muskie fishing. That's a very challenging sport.
It is a challenging sport. Once you have the right equipment and you have been doing it for a while, it's, they say the fish are 10,000 casts. Well, maybe you catch one on your first cast. Maybe you're lucky and you catch one and you're done. It's a challenging species to target, to find, because I'm not a DNR biologist, but there are hundreds of those fish in a lake as opposed to tens of thousands of walleyes, right? So the numbers, they're top-line predators, so there's not very many of them. They're harder to find, but they're a lot of fun. A lot of adrenaline in that sport.
Can muskies and walleyes ever coexist in the same lake?
All the time.
Why does Big Man Trap have no walleye?
I have no idea. I was surprised when I found that out.
Yeah. I always assumed that it was because it's known for muskies and that the muskies would prey on the walleye.
Muskies will prey on everything, including northern pike and muskies, but having top-line predator, top-line predators usually weed out the weak.
Yeah.
Right? They're not taking in a lot of cases, and ask a DNR biologist about this, a healthy muskie population means that you have a healthy population of other fish as well.
Yeah.
If you have a well-balanced lake, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you don't have any oversight over this, but we've got these invasive species and things like that. Does the county play any kind of role in trying to prevent that?
Well, the county has a responsibility, and we contract for most of our AIS protection measures, the people that are checking your trailers and boats and watching at the accesses.
Those are county services.
Those are dollars that come through the county, and we contract for those services. Other counties might actually hire staff.
Okay.
But those funds are made available from the state to the counties to administer those programs. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the environmental or AIS program is administered out of the Environmental Service Office of the county.
All right. So it's the DNR then has nothing to do with it, really.
Well, they do. We coordinate a lot when we get around water. We coordinate a lot with the DNR. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. How big of a problem is it in this county? I mean, have we got it under control? Can we tell people? Or
it's something that's not going to go away.
Yep.
It's not going to go away. It can be managed. But, my parents lived on Mille Lacs for a while, and they had the little mussels, zebra mussels. Mm-hmm. And, one year it was awful, and the next year they're gone. Oh. They every biological thing comes and goes in waves. But when you introduce something that wasn't there, which is the invasive portion, it has an impact on everything else that is. Yeah. I've been down fishing on Lake Minnetonka, and the milfoil is so thick you can't get a bait down to the muskies. So it's bad, and people need to be respectful, and they need to take the appropriate precautions. Industry. I used to work in the boat business too, and when all this started happening, we couldn't take a trailer and deliver a pontoon to one lake and then take it and deliver it to the next lake. So we actually had a fleet of trailers, and they were assigned to particular lakes. Try to comply and be good stewards of those resources.
Why do you enjoy fishing?
I started fishing when I was about 2, probably. Actually, I have a picture of me when I'm about 30 months old. And I snuck out of the cabin before anybody else was awake and went down to the lake and caught a fish. And then I came back up to show them and asked for help to get it off the line because I didn't know how to do that. But I've been fishing all my life. I don't know why. I have no idea why. But we spent the day on the Rainy yesterday. It was a beautiful day.
Never seems like a chore to you.
No. Well, I don't fish muskies as hard as I used to, because 12 hours of casting is harder on me than it used to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But you still enjoy it.
Oh, absolutely. I was up in Canada twice last year muskie fishing.
Yeah.
I fished man trap. I've been fishing Plantagenet for years. I've been fishing Plantagenet for more than 20 years.
I saw that one of your minor degrees was in philosophy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I'll ask you a question related to that. When it comes to art, Why is a particular piece of art good? Is it good because objectively it's good, and we can be told by critics that it was a good piece of art, or is it entirely subjective in that it only matters if you like how it looks, or is it somewhere in between?
Is this the Robin Williams question?
I don't know what you're referring to, so I don't know. Maybe.
Dead Poets Society. If you haven't seen that, you have to see it.
I have not seen it.
And actually, that is a question directly from that script.
Really?
And it is an art appreciation question, not a philosophical question.
Oh.
But I would dare to give you an answer in simply saying that art is both. I mean, there are quantitative aspects to art, and then there are qualitative aspects to art. But
okay,
that was not my area of study in philosophy.
Aesthetics.
I spent a lot of time studying existentialism.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking Sartre, Camus, Kierkegaard.
Yep.
Do you still go back and look at any of that stuff?
I actually last fall I had a conversation with one of my philosophy professors, and I was a senior in college, and he was a first-year professor at Concordia, and we were talking about it and having a conversation about it. He said, were you in that first class that I made you guys read Being and Nothingness? I'm like, yeah. He says, oh, I'm sorry. Because if you've tried to ever work through that one, it's a little bit tough. There's other Sartrean works that are shorter.
Yeah, that's a long one, isn't it?
Yes,
yeah.
it is.
Isn't there one called like Nausea or something like that? That's a little shorter and easier.
Nausea or No Exit, the play.
Yeah.
Those get to the same qualities and questions.
Do you think it's enriched your life to have studied philosophy?
Well, in addition to never saying I couldn't do something, I was asking why a lot. So I think it was natural for me to have some interest in philosophy.
Yeah.
Mostly, I mean, at Concordia's liberal arts college, you get an opportunity. You have requirements to study religion, and you have an opportunity to study whatever you want along the way. Eventually, pick a major and graduate. And I really believe strongly in the value of liberal arts. Learning good communication skills, good writing skills, good reading habits, and whatever you want to study with that is great. But just I would never have just been a business student and studied economics and just put my nose to it and done that. Although I studied math, I did a lot of those things.
Are you a musician as well?
Nope.
No.
I would love to be.
Okay. So you never did any singing or anything like that in Concordia? Or?
Nope.
No. Okay.
Nope. The only musical instrument I played at college was my stereo, and I still have it.
Okay. But you're a music appreciator, though, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I love music.
What kind of music are you listening to these days?
Same music I was listening to then. The great thing about Apple Music is you can just dial up 1981 rock hits and listen to them all again. And yeah.
Yeah, well, if you like the 80s rock, you should come and work out with us at Nick Bretz's studio there.
Oh, okay.
Because that's pretty much all he plays. Yeah, it was a good era.
I think they say that the music that impacts you the most is the music when you were about 14.
Is that so?
I think that's I've heard
okay.
that. So.
Okay, so I'm thinking, all right, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So you keep going back to that time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't listen to anything new. I'm terrible. And the fantastic thing is on your phone you have access to anything you want.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, you didn't have. Because before, I remember the time when you'd have if I was in high school or something, and you'd go to like Music Land or someplace like that, and you go through and there's racks, and you're like, I've never heard this before, but I'm gonna take a chance on it and see if I like it. And you'd buy it, and it wasn't all the time, but sometimes you buy something and just hate it, and then. But you didn't have the opportunity. But now, with the subscription services, the world's your oyster.
You'd have to go on Tuesdays because new albums were released on Tuesdays.
Yeah, that's
when
right.
You wanted to be there.
Yep.
Yeah, I still have 300 albums and 300 CDs, and I don't know what to do with them because I have a vintage stereo from the 70s. And I have all that vinyl.
So you listen to the vinyl?
So I do listen to vinyl. And it's a different experience than listening to electronic music. But if you just want to listen to the music, it's so easy just to use the phone and whatever Bluetooth speaker you have.
Yeah, and just kind of throw it on there when you're driving and everything. Yep. But vinyl does have a different sound.
It does, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, what other kind of hobbies or interests do you have?
Well, the thing that I'm working on right now is like I said, we bought a house when we moved here.
Yeah.
And it's about a 40-year-old house, so it needs some work. So last year I painted the exterior of the house, which is a bigger project than you might think it would be. But prepping and painting the outside of a house is a lot of work. I built a deck, and my latest project.
You did it yourself?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, spent a day, rent the little excavator, dig the holes, dig the foundation, pour the cement. Yeah, all that.
Had you ever done that before?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Jeff Cadwell, thank you for being here today. Yep. You're a problem solver. You demonstrated that by fixing the mic.
Yeah, the mic's
ladies
good.
And gentlemen, Jeff Cadwell fixed the mic here. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. And what can I say? Thank you, Jeff. Just keep up the good job as the county administrator.
Thanks for the invitation. Appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Thank you. All right. That was good. Thanks, Jeff.
Now watch that.
Yeah.
Look at that. You can just put it wherever
Look at that. You just move it wherever you want.
I'm so embarrassed.